I can't believe it's well past 20 years of Halloween H2O. I remember in 2018 when we were celebrating the 20th anniversary, I was like, holy crap, time has flown by. Hell, we're well over the 25th anniversary of Halloween H2O now. And what's even crazier is just how fast the Blumhouse stuff went down. I remember when I made this video being upset about Halloween Kills and Ends being pushed back a full year. I think we were supposed to get Halloween Kills in like 2020, and obviously it got pushed back because of COVID. And I remember making that video saying, now we have to wait this full year. This is insane. The Blumhouse films, they have come and they have gone. I've got quite an opinion on that series. And one of the things I like to ask the audience today is, which movie actually, is better in terms of retconning the original film? Or films, considering Halloween H2O is parts 1 and parts 2. But which one does it better? Which one is more satisfying? Halloween H2O does have time on its hands, but Blumhouse has 3 movies to flesh out. It's not exactly a fair comparison, but it's one that I think is necessary to make. There's a lot of Halloween fans today that either just got into the series, maybe because of the Blumhouse films, maybe old school fans that remember seeing Halloween H2O in the theater, or maybe you're like me, you were a little too young to see H2O in the theater, but you definitely saw it years and years ago. And the Blumhouse films, they have a little bit of time on their side as well. You've had time to marinate on all these Halloween films. Today we're going to talk about which way is the better way to go. Halloween H2O or the Blumhouse trilogy. Let's get into it. I like to actually start talking about the Blumhouse films before we get into Halloween H2O. Now, nobody was more excited to see Halloween 2018 in the theater than I was. I was almost standing up in the theater watching it. To be able to hear that Halloween theme play in the beginning was something I never thought I would hear again. It was so cool. The last film I had seen before was Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 in the theater. Now looking back, what I wouldn't give to relive that theater experience for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. But let's get back on track. It wasn't until maybe I got the film on Blu-ray or 4K for the first Halloween film, Halloween 2018, that I started to say to myself, okay, some of these things, they're not jiving with me. Now, I understand taking big swings in some of these films, especially when you're, doing any sort of legacy sequel, retconning things. And one of the biggest things that just sticks up my craw is a few things, actually. Number one is absolutely Dr. Sartain. Now, it's not necessarily having a character in the film like him, but the fact that this guy was so possessed by wanting to see Michael perform, as it were, that he would actually kill a human being just to see that happen, it seems ridiculous. It actually makes the Loomis character look like the most sane character ever. But here we've got this doctor who take innocent human life to see a killer perform. What kind of idiot are you? And it's another thing that, maybe they should have fleshed that out more. Give us some more to see. All we got is a little bit of hearsay about Dr. Sartain's experience with Michael. You want to know what else really bothers me about this film? Now, I'm not one for realism in a grand sense, but I've worked in the medical field. I'm a nurse. I keep my license up, although I don't practice as one. But anybody that goes into a mental ward and starts to scream like that would instantly be kicked out. When you see these podcasters show up to go see Michael and somehow they're in possession of this mask that Michael wore 40 years ago, which is another thing I'm considering, how did they get their hands on that? But when he starts screaming at Michael, he should have gotten his ass kicked out immediately. I know this sounds like a weird gripe, but I can't help it. After a while, I realized how ridiculous that scene is. Visually, it's fantastic, but on a realistic sense, what jackass is going to a mental ward and screaming at the top of their lungs? All in all, though, I do like the absolute serious tone of this film. There is a little bit of dialogue here and there that kind of makes my knees buckle from cringe, like when Laurie Strode goes into the restaurant and actually says, I saw him, I saw the shape. It just sounds absolutely ridiculous coming out of her mouth in that scene. Jamie Lee Curtis, I will say this, she's never really bad in any of these films. It's not so much her performance or anything, but it's just the way they portray Laurie Strode. Obviously, I can't talk about this film without the other films, so I'll kind of get into that now. It's clear that Halloween Kills came into the fold because it was a stopgap because the movie made so much money 2018 that they needed to kind of milk the cow a little bit more. I can forgive that and I can understand that. At the end of the day, I can sum up Halloween Kills pretty quickly. It's a cheesy slasher film. Sure, they do a couple things that are kind of risky, like making a flashback sequence to try to like make the fans excited, and quite frankly, the reason for them to want to see the film after word of mouth got out. But it's a stopgap film. I'm not going to really hate on Halloween Kills that much. If anything, if you're going to throw any one of these films on, Halloween Kills is probably the one out of the three that more Halloween fans will probably throw on at a moment's notice because it's just a cheesy slasher film. But when it comes to Halloween Ends, I gotta say this. None of this makes any sense to me. I really scratch my head at how bad the decision-making points were in this. Now, the way Laurie Strode acts in 2018, she acts like Michael is just somehow on the loose. She's got her house completely gated, nobody can get in and out. Michael's locked up in a ward. He's not going anywhere. He doesn't even act like he wants to do anything. He's minding his own business. Leave him alone. He's fine. But somehow in Halloween Ends, when Michael is missing, ladies and gentlemen, he's not locked away in a prison. He's not taken away to where he can't go anywhere. He's missing. This is when Laurie Strode decides to leave the front door unlocked, baking pies? What were they thinking? I mean, you've got to be kidding me. I truly can't fathom why they did this. It's the worst decision making I think I've ever seen in horror films. Like, what? Did nobody stop and say, you know, this really isn't relatable to anybody? I can't imagine anybody actually being more afraid when he's locked up behind bars rather than when he's missing and nobody knows where he is. He could be at your front door right now, but instead you're having the door unlocked. None of it makes sense to me. I understand the rationale that they went with, but you can't convince me otherwise. This was just poor decision making. They needed to go back to the drawing board on this big time, if you ask me. All that aside, I can say this. Halloween Ends to me has the most style out of all three films. The soundtrack is a little bit more darker. The visuals in this film are by far the best out of all three. I love the cave or sewer scenes you see with Michael. Yeah, I can understand some of the mythology and logic of it can be a little hard to wrap your head around. You know, just a few years ago, Michael was lifting people up, firefighters off the ground, like as easy as picking up a blanket, yet now he's just a decrepit old man that can barely move around. Whether it's because of some mythological reason or just because of the fact that he's hungry, I'll let you decide that. But visually, I will absolutely give it to Halloween Ends. Between these three films, despite the fact that if you watch these films in order, they'll make less sense to you, I think if you just throw on Halloween Ends and watch it for what it is, visually and style-wise, it's the best, and it's the one I enjoy watching the most. The character of Corey Cunningham, it's fine to me. I don't dislike the guy whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I kind of like him. It's a fairly relatable character, somebody that's going through hardships, he's bullied, he doesn't really get the time of day or the respect from people around him. Laurie Strode is actually one of the few people that really starts to respect him, as well as her granddaughter. But we see things start to go horribly awry. I've always thought the motif of evil traveling from person to person could work with this movie, in essence, as a way to explain the mythology of Michael, because if you go the way of the original Thorn trilogy, you know, that in and of itself is somewhat similar, albeit in a more direct, cursed way. It's still somewhat of a parallel you can draw. So I can't necessarily throw that motif away as it doesn't work. The problem is, this should have been done in the first film, and then they could have built off of it with two films after that. But I also think doing that could have pissed off hardcore fans big time. Let's stop here and go to Halloween H2O. The reality is Halloween H2O is a film strictly based off of Jamie Lee Curtis wanting to make money. And I know that sounds annoying to say, but she'll be the first to tell you. It was close to 20 years later, she thought about it and she was like, let's do it. It'll be a big movie for me. I don't know when the last big hit Jamie Lee Curtis was in. I know she did My Girl in the early 90s, which were pretty successful. But after that, maybe she had a couple flops around that time. I'm not sure. Regardless, she wanted to come back and do the film to make some money. And quite frankly, I don't blame her for that because You know, she was there for the first one. It's not like the Halloween franchise was exactly on fire either, so you can't say that she was trying to jump back on the gravy train either. Watching H2O for the first time was quite an experience. I thought it was an amazing film. This goes to how blissfully ignorant I could be. I wasn't really paying that much attention to notice that the mask was different from scene to scene. Sure, there's a Halloween 6 style mask that you see in the beginning of the film, which I definitely think was a great look for Michael. I really wish they would have just kept that mask throughout the entire film. I mean, the look of Michael in Part 6 is by far the best look of Michael to me. Then you see Michael with these big eye holes where he looks like an alien, and then you see a computer-generated Michael Myers mask. This film has problems. I know I sounded like I could be pretty harsh on the Blumhouse films earlier, but let's not kid ourselves. Halloween H2O has so many technical problems. Difference here is where the Blumhouse films have way less technical problems, in essence, not really any at all. They're extremely well-made production films, and they have story issues. On the other hand, Halloween H2O, in my opinion, doesn't really have any story issues. When it comes to Halloween H2O, it's pretty tight sealed from where we're at to where they were trying to connect them to. The original two films, which were Laurie Strode films. The brother-sister angle is always going to be something up for contention with Halloween fans. Do we like them being brother and sister, or do we not? Clearly John Carpenter doesn't, but the fans en masse, in my opinion, seem to like that. I think it makes a lot of sense, and strangely enough, another thing that John just disagrees with is that he thinks it takes away the scare factor. In essence, a lot of Halloween fans also disagree with him there too. Most fans think, oh, that makes it even scarier. That's her brother, this mysterious killer that she doesn't know because she was a baby, wants to kill him. Another thing about H2O is how great Jamie Lee is in this film. In my opinion, bar none, the best Laurie Strode performance is Halloween H2O. And if you want to know why, to me it's really this simple. In Halloween H2O, Jamie Lee feels like she's bringing herself to the role. Authenticity in performance is so important to me in H2O. It's definitely the way I think somebody would react if Michael had attacked her and years go by and she had to deal with it. Yeah, you could be saying, well, Christian, Michael is missing the way Michael was missing in Halloween Ends, but the difference here is this was just a few years. Now in Halloween H2O, based on the title, it's 20 years later. So, of course, she has to go on with her life. She has to get a job. She has to earn money. She has to take care of her kids. This makes so much more sense to me, and it's completely more believable. When it comes to the story, make no mistake, Halloween H2O's story, in my opinion, completely and absolutely trumps the Blumhouse storytelling arc. Because quite frankly, the Blumhouse storytelling arc doesn't make any goddamn sense. There's also moments in here in H2O that I love so much. I love a film with just a little bit of humor every now and again. LL Cool J's performance as a security guard is perfect. He's funny, but he delivers good lines, and he's a comedic relief in here that doesn't necessarily take away from the core of the film. I think he did a good thing and a bad thing. I'm sure Mustafa and everybody on the production team loved what LL Cool J did in H2O, but the problem is, it made Mustafa and the producers think, okay, let's get more pop culture music people to be in these films. Busta Rhymes did the exact opposite of what LL Cool J did. In terms of elevating the film, Busta Rhymes just completely ransacked the production of Resurrection without even saying the lines that he had written on paper. He changed everything. LL Cool J is an absolute professional and a great actor. Let's talk about the finales. I gotta be honest about something. I told you guys I did like Halloween Ends, but the reality is, the ending of Halloween Ends, if I was going to verbalize this to somebody and say, yeah, the way Halloween ends is they kind of fight Michael and somehow kill him, but you know, Michael doesn't ever really die, but what they do is they stab him a bunch, they tie him to the hood of a car, and the town drives to the dump where they put his body in a trash compactor. That would sound like the most ridiculous shit you've ever heard. And I gotta be honest, when I say it out loud, it sounds fucking ridiculous. There's no denying that. It sounds ridiculous. But what sounds less ridiculous is Laurie Strode and Michael battling it out to the very end. Laurie will stop at nothing to kill Michael, to where she finally gets him pinned against a van in a tree and with an axe swings as hard as she can and chops his damn head off. You see Michael's head fall down to the ground. There's a moment where Laurie's now breathing deep the way Michael would in some of the Halloween films, and cuts to the original John Carpenter soundtrack. I don't think anybody watching this video right now will disagree. that Halloween H2O has the much better ending than the Blumhouse trilogy. As it's clear that both the Blumhouse films and H2O have a myriad of problems. The question is, which one reigns supreme? Gun to the head, make no mistake, the one that I would take overall is Halloween H2O. This film, I think, betters with age, and it will never be topped by anything they try to do going forward when it comes to retconning the series. You got the best Laurie Strode, you got a great ending, and yeah, there's problems, but I think I'd rather take technical problems on a film than watching films that just make no sense to me at the end of the day. I'm really not trying to come down too hard on the Blumhouse films, but when it comes to all these Halloween sequels, the ones that I want to watch going forward is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now I'm going to make sure one of those staples every year is Halloween H2O. One of the best Halloween sequels.
Giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.